Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Birmingham. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are today, and wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. I hope you'll join us tomorrow evening, Monday the 15th at 7 p.m. for our Interfaith Anniversary of COVID service. Mayor Woodfin will be there, as well as faith leaders from around the city in this Zoom service, remembering and honoring this past year of the pandemic. I hope you'll join us. To all who are here this morning, welcome home.
If you would like to participate or comment on our service, especially during our sharings of joys and sorrows, please use the chat feature in YouTube. We have a host of new adult enrichment opportunities coming up, including a discussion of Plato with Stephen McClure this Saturday and our UUA Common Read, Breathe by Armani Perry with Reverend Julie on the 28th. If you'd like to see our offerings and or sign up for anything, please visit bit.ly/UUCB Spring, and note these links are case sensitive. So that is bit.ly/capital UUCBS lowercase BPRING. Tomorrow, March 15th at 7 p.m., please join with communities all around Birmingham as we honor and remember this past year, the pandemic in our community. Mayor Woodfin and faith leaders, including our own, will speak. The link is bit.ly/BHM COVID, all lowercase. Again, that's bit.ly/BHM COVID, all lowercase. Tuesday night, the Justice Committee is sponsoring Racially Charged America's Misdemeanor Problem at 7 p.m., followed by a brief discussion. The link is in the email. Please check out this morning's announcements.
Hello, I'm Lisa Ice, Executive Director of Bridge Ministries in Birmingham. Some of you might remember me from previous visits with your congregation. I remember how warmly you welcomed me and even allowed me to speak from your pulpit, which I considered a great honor. Your congregation has a strong social justice history, and I feel your mission closely aligns with Bridge Ministries and has for many years. You probably know Bridge Ministries was formed by congregations in the South Side. Originally, the intention was to work together to do more good work than each individual congregation could do separately. We continue that work today, and we provide a service that's a little unique in Birmingham. We focus on homelessness prevention. That means for people who've had an unavoidable, sudden loss of income and are behind on their rent and utilities, we can provide financial assistance to keep them from the brink and often avoid homelessness. We also have special programs that work with hospitals and local veterans organizations. We want to know when people are really struggling with their housing during a medical crisis. Children's Hospital, UAB, and St. Vincent's regularly refer folks to us when they're on the verge of losing their housing while their health is in danger. Children's Hospital in particular has been a concern for us because parents often lose their income while caring for an ill child. No one should have to worry about losing their housing and utilities while their child is sick. We provide for other needs of our clients also. Sometimes people need a little more than just having a bill paid. We connect people to all sorts of counseling, credit counseling, attorneys who will help them for free. We work with food banks, even medical professionals when people are unable to get primary care. We can connect people to free medical care and free prescriptions in some cases. All of this is a work of a community. None of us could do this work alone, so our community ties are crucial. We'd like to tell you more about Bridge Ministries and would like to have you reconnect with our board of directors. You've had members on our board in the past, including the Reverend Karen Matson. Jessica York, who's a friend of your congregation, has been a past president of the Bridge Ministries Board and is currently serving as an at-large member. If you're interested in having a new board member with Bridge Ministries, please contact me. I'd love to give you more information about our programs and answer any questions you have about the particular things that we do. I'm always available to speak with the congregation as a whole again, or individual groups, Sunday school groups, social justice groups. I'd love to come and speak with you anytime, so let me know. If you want to get in touch with me for more information, the easiest way is probably email. So put volunteer or more information in the subject line and send it to bridgereferral@gmail.com. I'm looking forward to seeing you again in the near future, and thank you for your support.
The prelude prepares us for worship. We light this chalice, symbol of our purpose to bring more love and justice into the world. We light this chalice knowing our congregation as a church dispersed across communities, not bound by walls, but connected through the web of life.
I do not so trusting not, bitter though the test may be, through all ages they are right, though they build in agony. He that teacheth ignorance, hope beyond thy own frontier, all of light and vivid faith, be tomorrow's pioneer.
Our church is supported by those who call our church home and by those who support the efforts of our church to change the world for the better. We share our cash plate every Sunday with organizations whose work reflects UU values to care for marginalized persons, advocate for real and systemic change, defend our environment, and promote justice and equity for all. This month's Share the Plate recipient is Bridge Ministries, a nonprofit organization that works to prevent homelessness by providing direct emergency assistance to at-risk individuals and families in the greater Birmingham area. During this time of social distancing and online worship, please know that church expenses continue. Therefore, we very much appreciate you continuing to pay your pledge or offer your donation by either mailing a check to the church office or by using PayPal or Venmo. Our Venmo account is at UUCBham. Please designate whether your offering is for UUCB or for Bridge Ministries. Thank you for your generous support of our church and our Share the Plate recipient. May we give in love and in hope.
As we enter our meditative space this morning, we were reminded that we are part of a greater community and that we spend this time in care and love for one another. We lift up today the family of Cohen Bockham, a young man who passed away this week after dealing with childhood cancer. We ask that you would keep his family and all who loved him in your thoughts and prayers this week. We lift up Mitch Bolton and his roommate Michael and celebrate that they are both home from the hospital. We also celebrate a new addition to our community. Thomas Edmund McLeod IV was born December 2nd at 9:50 a.m. to Aaron McLeod and Tommy and his two big sisters. We celebrate this new addition to their family and to our wider church family. For all of these concerns and all of these things placed on our heart, feel free to reach out and be the community I know you to be. At this time in the service, using the chat feature in YouTube, by speaking it aloud, or by hearing it on your heart, please give voice to what is on your heart today. Please join me in hearing a spoken meditation followed by a moment of silence. Today's meditation was written by Reverend Margaret Weiss. The church is not a place, it is a people. The church is not only a steeple above the tree line, streets, and cars. Rather, it is a people proclaiming to the world that we are here for the work of healing and of justice. The church is not walls built stone upon stone, held together by mortar, but rather person, linked with person, linked with person. All ages and genders and abilities, a community built on the foundation of reason, faith, and love. The church is not just a set of doors open on Sunday morning, but the commitment, day after day and moment after moment, of our hearts creaking open, the doors of welcome to the possibility of new experience and radical welcome. The church is not simply a building, a steeple, a pew. The church is the gathering together of all the people and experiences and fear and love and hope in our resilient hearts. gathering however we can to say to the world, welcome, come in, lay down your heartache, and pick up hope and love. For the church is us, each and every one of us together, a beacon of hope to this world that so sorely needs it. Amen and blessed be. In honor of the anniversary of these virtual services, please join together with Courtney and Erica in singing the adaptation to Gather the Spirit, COVID edition.
Gathering spirit, shelter in place. Let's do what we can to flatten the curve. Wash your hands often, don't touch your face. This virus is something no one deserves. Gather on Skype, gather on Zoom, gather by phone with family and friends. Gather online, but don't leave your room. Let's all stay safe till this crisis ends. Gather on Facebook, not for too long. There's so many ways of passing the time. Take up crocheting, write a new song, read a good book, make brownies sublime. Gather on Skype, gather on Zoom, gather by phone with family and friends. Gather online, but don't leave your room. Let's all stay safe till this crisis ends. Gather in spirit, pray for those scared, the sick and the poor, the lonely at home. Count all your blessings, reach out and share. Let everyone see that they're not alone. Gather on Skype, gather on Zoom, gather by phone with family and friends. Gather online, but don't leave your room. Let's all stay safe till this crisis ends.
Good morning. Will the children please come forward? So nice to see you again. Today, in honor of Women's History Month, I will be sharing with you some stories about women who made breakthroughs in sports. Now, I'm going to be sharing with you from the book She Persisted in Sports. I'm only sharing a few stories, but there are several in there, and if you're interested in borrowing it, of course, just contact me. So please join me in our story. It's not easy to be a girl athlete. Girls are more likely to be told sports are for boys, or that they'll never be good enough, fast enough, strong enough, and that their athletic dreams are unacceptable, even impossible. Don't listen to those people. These women athletes made their sports dreams real. They persisted. When she was a child, Gertrude Ederle lost part of her hearing because of the measles, but she and her parents were determined that it wouldn't stop her from doing anything she wanted, including swimming. By the time she turned 20, she had won 3 medals in freestyle at the 1924 Olympics. She then found a new dream, to swim the English Channel. After Gertrude's first attempt didn't succeed, her coach said that women might just not be capable of swimming the channel. Rather than listen to her coach, she found a new coach, and she persisted. The next year, in 1926, she succeeded. Her record time would not be broken for 20 more years. When she was a teenager, Mildred Babe Didrikson Zacharias worked as a seamstress, sewing sacks to store things like grains, potatoes, or sand, and at an insurance company. Babe could have decided she had no time for sports, but she persisted. In playing alongside her brothers, she earned her nickname, which honored the famous baseball player Babe Ruth. After hitting 5 home runs in one game, her training clearly paid off. At the 1932 Olympics, Babe won gold medals in javelin and 80-meter hurdles and a silver medal in the high jump. After her Olympic triumph, Babe took up golf and went on to win 10 women's major golf championships. She is considered one of the greatest women athletes ever. Wilma Rudolph was born prematurely, weighing just 4.5 pounds. And by age 5, she had survived pneumonia, scarlet fever, and polio, which weakened her left leg and foot. For years she wore a leg brace, but she persisted in believing she would walk again, and even run without her brace. And she was right. By 14, Wilma was competing in track events, and at 16, she was the youngest member of the 1956 U.S. Olympic team. And at 20, at the 1960 Olympics, she won 3 gold medals, the 100-meter, the 200-meter, and the 4x100-meter relay. She was the first American woman to win 3 gold medals in one Olympics. Back home, Wilma used her new fame to push for integration in sports and public spaces and to support Black American women athletes, including Florence Griffith Joyner, the next woman to win 3 gold medals in one Olympics. Together, tennis star sisters Venus and Serena Williams have won 14 women's doubles titles across all 4 Grand Slam tournaments and 3 Olympic gold medals starting at the 2000 Summer Olympics. They are one of the most successful doubles teams of all time. In their individual careers, Venus has won 7 Grand Slams and Serena 23. They have also both won individual golds at 2 different Olympics. The Williams sisters have confronted vile racism and sexism throughout their careers, but that never stopped them. They persisted in pursuing a sport they love, and they have helped define what tennis is for young girls and boys everywhere. When Mia Hamm and other women on the 1996 Olympic soccer team started playing their sport, there were very few role models for them to look up to. Soccer wasn't a particularly popular sport in the U.S., and most of the attention was given to men. Mia Hamm, Carla Overbeck, Julie Foudy, Christine Lilly, Brandi Chastain, Brianna Scurry, and the other members of their team could have given up at any point, but they persisted, traveling the country and the world proving that American women can win. They earned a gold medal at the first Olympics to include women's soccer, and a few years later won the World Cup. Mia and her teammates proved American girls could play soccer and win. Girls soccer is now one of the most popular kids sports in America. So if someone tells you girls can't be athletes or that you'll never make it, don't listen. Focus on your dreams. These women did just that. They persisted, and so should you. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, if someone tells you you can't do something, to persist. Please join me in singing our song.
One each person is worthwhile. To be kind
is true. 5, all people get a vote. 6, build a just and peaceful world. 7, we take care of the earth. That will bring us back to me and you too.
When I was first dating Josh, it seemed from the outset that we had very similar backgrounds. We both had mortgages and were teaching high school, which meant we also had a lot of supplemental income. Our record one year was 12 W-2s and 1099s. Our parents were both married to each other, and our parents both lived in the same town, 7 miles down from one another. We had many overt similarities. What I didn't understand early on was that there was one vast difference between us, namely that the outside world treated us differently based on the color of our skin. His stories were nothing like my stories, and his stories are not mine to tell, today or any day. But I have witnessed people assuming that he was working at an event instead of a guest. I have witnessed racial slurs against him and the way law enforcement treats us differently, and endless arrays of microaggressions directed at him. For those of you not familiar with that term, a microaggression is an indirect, subtle, or unintentional discrimination against members of a marginalized group. One of the microaggressions I see most often in Birmingham is the assumption that if someone is not black, then they are white. And there's a whole rainbow of skin tones and cultures on that spectrum living right here in Birmingham. But Josh doesn't just carry around his own stories. He carries around the stories of his Mexican ancestors, the Latinx community, and their food, culture, social norms, traditions, and history. His mom's life growing up in Mexico, her journey immigrating to the United States, his grandmother clinging to her Spanish language in fear of losing her culture. That history is part of his DNA, the collective trauma of racism and discrimination that all of his family members face on a regular basis. Our stories are the amino acids that build our communal history, our communal DNA. When we forget the histories that make us different, we start to believe that our perception of the world is the only one that matters. Part of this vital and important work in anti-racism, anti-oppression, and multiculturalism, which the UUA gives the acronym ARAOMC work, is to remind ourselves that all histories matter in order to understand our collective past and choose compassion in the present. It's important to understand that the land we stand on today first belonged to one of the indigenous tribes, in my case, the Creek people. In your case, it may be a different tribe based on where you are in the United States, but the truth remains. It's important to understand that the Creeks did not move because they wanted to, but because they were forced to. We must remember that certain folks among us cannot trace their ancestry because others intentionally erased it in another forced migration that led to centuries of oppression. Even though many of our ancestors were immigrants once, our culture struggles with welcoming immigrants and refugees to the point of refusing admittance to Jewish refugees in the 1930s and 40s to turn around and welcome Nazis here in order to get us to the moon. It's called the Paperclip Project. People have died because of our nation's xenophobia. All of this because a choice was made to ignore and forget and devalue cultural history that is not our own. And there's a simple remedy. Listen, read histories, listen more. 2 weeks ago, we had a church book discussion on the fifth little girl, the Sarah Collins Rudolph story. For those of you unfamiliar with her, Sarah was physically present with the 4 little girls at 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham in 1963. Sarah was socializing with her sister Addie Mae and her friends Carol, Cynthia, and Denise when the bomb went off. She was permanently blinded and still has shards of glass embedded in her body. There was so much we learned in reading this glimpse into the life of Birmingham legend Sarah Collins Rudolph. Before and courageously after the bombing, Sarah was a child foot soldier during the civil rights movement. We read about how University Hospital had to make an exception to treat her injuries from the blast because they were not yet an integrated medical center. Her book is a powerful one, and once we are back together, I hope that Sarah can come speak in person to us. One of the biggest takeaways from Sarah's work is how forgotten she has been. For a person who was literally in the same room as the blast that destroyed her world, very few have been willing to listen to her, to ask what happened, to get her side of the story. She describes in the book that people have gone so far as to invent stories about what happened that day, not bothering to ask the then 12-year-old girl who was there in the room that day. Her life experiences are important to remember, to take to heart, to honor Addie Mae, Carol, Cynthia, and Denise, and also the forever changed life of Sarah herself. I hope Birmingham finds a grand way to honor her. We want to remember all those who have been forgotten and overlooked. It is important to remember our history. We want to remember all those who fought and died on Bloody Sunday, which happened 56 years ago last Sunday. We want to remember Reverend James Reeb, a Unitarian minister who traveled to Alabama and was murdered by the Klan, and whose Memorial Day is March 11th. We also want to remember Susan B. Anthony, whose Memorial date of March 13th, 1906, happened 14 years before women's suffrage was passed. She never saw her dream come to fruition. Another little-known or discussed story from our history that's been on my heart this week is that of Tamara Lanier, a woman who traced her lineage to enslaved ancestors named Renty and Delia, only to discover that early photographs called daguerreotypes of them existed, tucked away in the bowels of Harvard's libraries. Naturally, she wanted the photos, as they depicted her ancestors. And because most folks who have enslaved ancestors rarely have access to names, much less photos. The daguerreotypes were taken in 1950 by Louis Agassiz, a Harvard professor, as a project where he asked enslavers to bring enslaved persons to Boston to be studied and photographed. The images are degrading, and they were hidden away until they were discovered in 1975 when they were published. Having seen the images myself, no one would want their ancestors depicted in such a way. All Miss Lanier has requested are the prints that depict her two ancestors. And this week, a judge ruled against her, saying that the subject of a photograph has no ownership of the negative or the photographs printed from the negative. Personally, this alum thinks they need to take this out of the courts and give her the photos. It's the least we could do. Miss Lanier's efforts to remember her history have profound implications for historical artifacts depicting enslaved persons. The stories of our collective histories, which includes the histories of all our peoples, is one of those important ways that we live out our values by sharing those stories together. It helps us to cultivate compassion for others and find ways to creatively be in community together. It's how we generate new ideas, fan the passion within our church, and bring more people to the table. When we forget the histories that make us unique, we risk also forgetting what brings us together. Our church is offering an opportunity every Sunday this month to consider other histories. Josh's White Fragility book study continues today. Rob Collins will discuss the Creek people next week, and our UUA Common Read, Breathe by Imani Perry, will happen at the end of the month. Our UUA Common Read is the book chosen by our denomination each year that UUs across the country read and study together. It has officially been a year since we've been together, and yet we have made history together. We have discovered new ways to be in community together and have had a wonderful time doing it. We also grieve so much what we've sacrificed, missing the energy of a room full of people and the folks we've lost along the way. As we go forth from this service today, consider, what will you remember from these pandemic times? How will this part of your history change you? How will it transform our congregation? May you be held in the heart of community until we are joyfully reunited in person. Amen and blessed be.
$525,600 minutes, 525,000 moments, oh dear. 525,600 minutes. How do you measure a year? In daylights, in sunsets, in midnights, in cups of coffee, in inches, in miles, and laughter and strife. In 525,600 minutes, how do you measure a year in the life? How about love?
died, in bridges he burned, or the way that she died.
It's time now to sing out, though the story never ends. Let's celebrate, remember a year in the life of friends. Remember love, love.
Please join together in our closing hymn. Never has it been more true than now. We extinguish this flame, but the sparks within us remain alight. From each of us in our supposed solitude, the signal buzz and hum, sparkling through space one to another. Connecting us invisibly and palpably, we are one, and from every window our light shines.
you.